Hello, YouTube. Welcome to my channel, Marriage, Politics, and Sports. R. Payne here. Hey, listen, I've been away from Candace Owens for a little while. As you know, a lot of you might know she's been demonetized on YouTube because she speaks too much truth. Now, even if she goes down a rabbit hole, we should all be concerned about the censorship that's going on because certain parties and certain people do not want to put information out there, and they're using their power to stop her. But from what I understand, her followers, her subscribers put a full court press on to get her back on YouTube. I mean, after a week or so, but she's still demonetized. And I think that the demonetization doesn't even matter to her because I believe she has some independent funding sources. And she doesn't, everybody doesn't want to lose a bag. Funding source is a funding source, but that's not stopping her from talking. You know what I'm saying? So before we go any further, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And, leave comments on what you think about Candace Owens. Never really disliked her, but I was against her just like a lot of other Black folks until I started listening to the truth that she tells. And once you get over the programming of trying to defend yourself or defend the Black community against everything that's spoken truthfully about the bad things that's going on in the community, you start listening to people who are telling you the truth. And I guess the watershed moment for me with her was her exposure and expose on Black Lives Matter. And she's been telling a lot of, so yeah, the folks that she was doing it for would give people cause for pause. However, truth is the truth, no matter who's backing you. But now that she's broken away from the cabal, uh, she's still telling the truth about things. And whether you accept her back as some kind of integral member of the Black community is immaterial, right? We're all Americans. Even, the fact that she has a white husband may bother some people, but you know what? That's her business, right? She's not claiming to be a blackity black or anything like that, but she claims to want to be able to put the truth out there. So today, on this video, she has her eyes set on this notion that somehow all of a sudden Kamala Harris is some kind of Black icon. And that was never the case until the media propped her up as some great presidential candidate, where just months earlier, she was the worst vice president in the world. So, I mean, and then we had the Divine Nine, which I'm one of them, trying to say, well, we could have some historical moments, but that's not what we should put at the top of our country to have some celebration or some kind of moment like that. I mean, this too much is at stake to put the wrong person with no policies, ultra liberal, into the White House. We've already had too many years of that already. And we've seen what happened to inflation. We've seen what happened to marriage. We've seen what happened to uh, the grocery prices and all the things of that nature. I mean, people are hurting, and then they parade, a whole bunch of celebrities in front of us who are out of touch with reality, just elitist cabal, trying to tell people, everyday working people, how they should vote. I mean, we should all be offended by that. Who gives a shit with LeBron? Not LeBron, he's not the big one, but D.L. Hughley, Steve Harvey, Roland Martin, Ricky Smiley, Eric Dyson, manufacturing some racial episode with a congresswoman and then trying to slide in her DMs and trying to get a date. I mean, come on. And she exposed his ass. So these guys are hypocrites. They should not, they don't represent the black rank and file of anybody. And now we have D.L. Hughley coming out against Janet Jackson. I mean, Janet Jackson, I don't care what happened to her nose. That's her business. She's been Black all her life. So she had a question. So what? Because she questioned Kamala Harris. that all of a sudden people are going to try to turn on her. It's not going to work. And if you have to choose Janet Jackson over Kamala, that people are going to choose Janet Jackson, no matter how much the media tries to sway people. It's not going to work. And I was so glad that that person who tried to apologize for her got fired, kicked out, because they had no right to speak for her. And it's just so refreshing for somebody to stand on their own, 10 toes down on what they said, because it's true. Now, I don't know about the white father, but his roots are from white slavery, and that's no big deal. So many of us roots, a lot of American blacks' roots have white slavery. However, this whole notion that, Kamala Harris was raised as a black woman is absolutely fraudulent. It's just not true. And she said it enough herself. And all of a sudden, nobody has any media stuff when she extols that she's the first Asian this and the first Asian that. Right. So, even that, because the truth of the matter is, I don't really care about her ethnicity, her Asianness. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Asians. It really isn't. If you got the right policies and something that is good for all Americans, you could be president. I like Vivek, right? I like the dude, So if he ever becomes prominent enough to really challenge for the presidency, he'd be worth a look. I don't give a shit whether he's from India or not, or his parents were. The dude seemed like a good dude. So it's going to be all about his policies, just like it would be all about Kamala's policies if they would just let her talk about them, and then she could do it and stand on her own 2 feet. Instead, it's all identity politics. They want us to make her president for her mumbling her way there because she's a woman and because she has brown skin. And Candice puts a focus, a microscope or telescope or a magnifying glass on that assertion that she's a black woman and nobody should ask her any questions. So without further ado, this is a long video, so I'm not going to play it all, but we'll play enough of it so you can get a good taste of what Candice is saying. And then I'll put the link in the description, and then we'll just go from there. You know what I'm saying? This is a very critical election, just like they all are. But I think this is an election of ideology, and we can't afford any more years of this debaucherous ideology, this ultra liberal ideology that breaks away families, breaks up, takes away children from their parents, and does all kinds of things that is an antithesis of American way of life. And probably even pending World War III with the wrong person at the helm. Matter of fact, who'll be pushing for that, most likely to prove that they're strong and don't have any regard for the men that they're sending into war zones. So we need to crash the Democrats out of power. Let them regroup and come back with some real policies for Americans and not just for the elite and the cabal. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to share some of the stuff from Candace Owens, and we'll go from there. Stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Make sure you put some comments on what Candace has to say, or her in particular, and we can debate it back and forth and all that kind of stuff. But here we go.
I can admit I was completely triggered. I was triggered by the manner in which the Guardian, or a Guardian reporter rather, treated Janet Jackson in a profile piece. It was very obvious they were trying to do the wacko jacko bit again, like they did with her brother. So to remind you, Janet Jackson brought up in her interview human trafficking, child trafficking, and the journalist then decided to heavily imply that Janet Jackson was just nuts, to pretend that we have a child trafficking issue in this country. And then when the reporter switched gears and asked her about supporting Kamala Harris as the first female Black president, Hollywood's all got to get in line and support this woman or else, Janet Jackson simply said that she had heard that Kamala was not Black and that she was in fact Irish. And the media, predictably, went completely crazy. I mean, here are some of the headlines here. NBC, Janet Jackson tells interviewer she's heard Kamala Harris is not Black, echoing election disinformation. Oh, love that word. Newsweek, Janet Jackson's Kamala Harris remarks spark Black backlash. The Independent, she's not Black. Janet Jackson makes shocking comments about Kamala Harris's heritage. And of course, the New York Times, Janet Jackson repeats false claims about Kamala Harris's race. False claims. So to be clear, all Janet Jackson said was, quote, "That's what I heard, that she's Indian, that her father's white. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told that they discovered that her father was white." Okay. That is all that she said that led to all of this craziness in the media trying to paint her like she was some sort of a psycho. And then her manager, a guy named Mo El Marzi, that I'm showing you a picture of here, he offered an apology on Janet Jackson's behalf to BuzzFeed. He said, quote, "Janet Jackson would like to clarify her recent comments. She recognizes that her statements regarding Vice President Kamala Harris's racial identity were based on misinformation. Janet respects Harris's dual heritage as both Black and Indian and apologizes for any confusion caused. She values the diversity that Harris represents and understands the importance of celebrating that in today's society. Janet remains committed to promoting unity and understanding," end quote. And guess what happened? Janet Jackson fired him immediately and said that he was not authorized to make that statement at all. And she was not apologizing because she was not sorry, and good for her. I'm glad she fired him. I am so tired of people being so fake, having to apologize for something that should not have yielded any response from the media. In fact, it should have been the opposite. They should have went ahead and investigated the claim that Kamala Harris is Black, gotten to the bottom of it fully. But instead, it was a media pylon. And then after being fired, Mo added to that pylon by referring to Janet Jackson as unbalanced. Like the person who just worked for her came out and was like, she's unbalanced. I mean, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Then came me. I don't know. I guess I really am the person that has been in these streets, Kamala, because I decided to simply look into her genealogy. Because why on earth is the world trying to convince me that this woman is suddenly Black? Like they just decided she was Black because she's running and because there is evidence, it is true, that her father grew up in Jamaica. Your race does not magically change because of where you grow up, okay? If I grow up in Sweden, I don't get to suddenly say I'm white, okay? And what I discovered was quite startling. Now, I'll ask you, when did you first get the idea that Kamala was Black? Well, you'll say, yeah, when she kind of started running with Joe Biden. And that claim really came from Kamala herself. When they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, they understood that. Kamala Harris published a book in 2019 called The Truth That We Hold. And presumably the book was filled with truth that she was holding. I had a look through it and I saw this picture of her and her grandmother, clearly a Black looking grandmother, on page 282 in the photograph section. It reads, as you can see, visiting my paternal grandmother, Beryl, in Jamaica. Also on that same page, there's another photo of her. Again, you can see it's black and white. I'm not quite sure why it is black and white, but it says, when I was 10 months old, I visited Spanish Town, Jamaica. This is me with my mother and my paternal grandfather, Oscar Joseph. And now this guy looks mixed. He looks Asian of some description, but you can see the idea here is that she's definitely trying to introduce, in a manner of photos, things that make her race look more complicated. So I just decided to investigate that. And immediately things got weird, very weird. First and foremost, because it was very easy for me to determine via just a light search online that Beryl, her alleged paternal grandmother that you just saw, died 4 years before Kamala was born in 1960. So last night we decided to continue our research to see if we could find birth certificates and marriage certificates and death certificates, which could further signify those points. And indeed it did. It also raised even more questions about.
All right. So before I go further, I mean, just think about the magnitude of the lie, right? And one thing we can almost say about Candice Owens is that her research is impeccable, and I would imagine she pays a pretty penny for the information that she gets and that she researches. And and one thing you can give her is she's tireless in these kind of endeavors. And so now, and I tell you what, if she's successful in blowing this up, she might save us and the country from a fate worse than death in terms of Kamala becoming president, because that's the last thing that we need at this particular time. I mean, if she comes clean, I mean, I don't know if she could recover from this, because I don't want to say she's a bad person. She just wouldn't be a good president, period. She's not the kind of person that we need at the helm, especially right now.
About her genealogy. So let's go through those. Here is the birth certificate for her paternal grandmother. This is Kamala's paternal grandmother, Beryl. Okay, now you can see on this birth certificate that Beryl is spelled with an I. It's Beryl Magdalene. And you can see the reason why we know this is the correct Beryl is because the mother is listed as Iris Finnegan. Later on, we're going to show you in the book, she names Iris Finnegan as her great grandmother. So that would be Beryl's mother. So we have the right woman. Also, formerly, her maiden name is Allen. That is true. It also says here that she's born in October of 1917 in St. Anne. That's the St. Anne parish of Jamaica. And again, you can see it says it is signed by Iris Finnegan. Very clearly, this is the woman that we are looking for. This is Kamala's grandmother, alleged grandmother, Beryl. It's also interesting, by the way, that it lists her great grandmother as a seamstress, because Donald Harris, Kamala's father, wrote in a 2020 piece called Reflections of a Jamaican Father, quote, Miss Iris, that again would be his grandmother, was the mother of 8 children, too, was the sweetest and gentlest person one could meet, but underneath it was a tough farming woman who ran the cane farm at Thatch Walk near Town, jointly owned with her husband, Mr. Christie. Okay, that's weird. So you're telling me that she ran a farm, because on that birth certificate, it says that actually Iris was a seamstress, but whatever. Let's just park that aside for a second and stick with Beryl, this woman who died before Kamala was born. Okay. Because I was feeling pretty certain that not too many people were going to be named Beryl and be born in the St. Anne parish of Jamaica in 1917 to a mother named Iris Finnegan. I felt confident that we could find a little bit more data, and in fact, we did. Okay. First, we stumbled across Beryl's marriage certificate. Okay, so you can see that right here. And now the name spelling has changed. You have Beryl Finnegan spelled with a Y in the same way that Kamala spells it. And it lists their married date as 1944. Again, you can see the parish that is listed is St. Anne Parish. This is where every piece of Beryl's life seems to take place. It reads here that her calling is a barmaid. And something that jumped out at me was the fact that she's married to someone, as you can see, named Lawford Newland. Okay. So Beryl apparently was married more than once, because Lawford Newland is not Donald Harris's father, but Beryl is his mother. So just to be clear, again, it says that she married a guy named Lawford Newland in 1944 when she was 25 years old. Okay. It's important to note that that would have been.
I just want to stop it for a second. All right, so we're going to continue right there in a little bit. So I'm going to go just a little bit further, and then I'm going to put this link into the description. And if you want to go through it all, because this whole stream is worth listening to, because she brings up some other things, even not related to Kamala, but it's related to some of the Diddy stuff. But so you kind of see where this is going. She's finding all kinds of plot holes in the claims, right? She's finding a lot of plot holes in these claims, and it's really damaging. And I don't know. I know she has a little bit of clout. I wonder how this is going to play out to expose and to explode into the mainstream, to get around to enough people. Now, her reach is there. There's already millions of people listening to this. So it could go viral. Let's continue.
4 years after she gave birth to Donald Harris, Kamala's father. I find that to be very strange. Also, regarding Kamala's father, we cannot seem to locate. I'm sorry, regarding Lawland Newland, the person that she married, we can't find him. Can't find him anywhere. We cannot find a birth certificate. We cannot find a death certificate. We can't find a news item or otherwise. I cannot find this alleged Lawford Newland that apparently her grandma got married to. We also can't find a wedding certificate for Beryl and Oscar Wilde Joseph Brown Harris. That is allegedly supposed to be Donald Harris's father. Okay, so Kamala's grandfather is Oscar Wilde Joseph Brown Harris, and we can't find a marriage certificate between the two of them. That's very strange. As speculated, we were able to confirm that Kamala's Black grandmother that she showed us in that picture died in 1960, before Kamala was born. I can show you right now her death certificate. Let's take a look at Beryl's death certificate, which confirms. As you can see there, it says that she died in July of 1960. It also tells us on the right-hand side, you guys will probably have to zoom in on this, but she died of a uterine infection, uterine fibroids due to a hysterectomy. It has her listed as 39 years. That's actually a couple of years off from 1917, so somebody may have gotten their math wrong here. But you once again see that it lists her birthplace as St. Anne. And so this is a huge scandal. Just an absolutely huge scandal.
I'm gonna stop it right there. Listen, you guys can go back and listen and go check this out for yourself. I'm gonna put this link, like I said, in the description, and you can go back and listen to the whole thing, put it together yourself, and see where it goes, see where it leads. Because I think that it's we're hearing something, and I'm sure by now so do you. And listen, I tell you, it's pretty disturbing. And she has like 2.5 million followers. It's not a lot, but it's YouTube. YouTube messages spread, right? So I just think that when you're running for president, guys like Donald Trump is absolutely an open book, right? We know all the charges, we know all the so-called convictions, we know all of these things, half of which are going to get overturned. But that's immaterial. But he's an open book. He is who he is, right? Everybody knows, and if you love him or hate him, you can't argue the fact he is who he is. And the worst thing against him is all the issues outside of the presidency. We already have 4 years of this guy, and until the pandemic, he would have won a second term. There's no doubt about it. He would have won a second term. Even after the pandemic, he was still close to Biden, so he would have won a second term. So, and we can't blame the pandemic on Donald Trump. Matter of fact, he was right about the Chinese, about where it started. He was right about that. So, so I'm just saying, Candice, I applaud her. That's why I started this series, Candice Unleashed, because love her or hate her, she's tenacious. And anyway, I give her full credit for what she's doing, and I think that anybody who's really upset is only upset is because she's not silent. She's not being silent about it. She's talking. And it's going to upset the apple cart, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. I'm glad I captured her when she came back from exile and started putting out these Candice Unleashed episodes. So this is episode 9. Check it out, and but hit the link for her whole full video, and let's hope that somebody's got her back, because right now, when free speech is under attack, she's like a fresher breath of air. So she's right up there with Elon Musk. If it wasn't for her and him, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have any free speech at all left in America. And if it wasn't for her being brave enough to give up the money to continue to be heard, we would have even less. And the reason why we know that's true, because Mark Zuckerberg came out and spilled the beans on the fact that he was coerced, voluntarily or not, to censor everybody in 2020. Anyway, our pain, marriage, politics, and sports, over and out.